certain points, you have to fulfill certain things that the scholars have mentioned. Can anyone remember some of these things that were mentioned yesterday? What were the things that a person has to fulfill in order to be referred to as a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
You have to be living at the time of the Prophet.
Jazakallah khairan. That's the first point. Living at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second point was?
To believe in the Prophet.
Sorry?
To believe in the message.
Exactly. You have to believe in the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then thirdly and lastly, you have to
die in the state of Iman.
Exactly. Allah Azza wa Jalla has to have taken your soul in the state of Iman. You have to have died as a Muslim. If these three conditions are met, then the person is considered to be a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, if we look at Najashi, Najashi is one of the few cases where you might think he should be a companion, because he was alive at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he met the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He believed in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he died as a Muslim. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself acknowledged that fact. However, there is a small technicality, and that is Najashi actually never saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He never had physical interactions with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because of that, he did not really fulfill that first condition. So because of that, the scholars in Islam, they say Najashi, even though he was a very pious man and he was a great man, he was not a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was something else. And that something else is known as a tabi'i. A tabi'i meaning those that came after the companions. So the three conditions that I mentioned before, seeing the Prophet ﷺ or being alive at his time, believing in him and passing away as a Muslim, if you move one level down from the Prophet ﷺ, those three conditions are still supposed to be met. Meaning, instead of seeing the Prophet ﷺ, in order for you to be a tabi'i, who must you have seen? The Sahaba, right? So if you meet any of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, and you believe in the message that they came with, meaning the message of Islam, the religion that the Prophet ﷺ taught us, and you died as a Muslim, then you will not be a companion, but you will be those that saw and interacted with the companions, tabi'i. Such as some of the most well-known tabi'in are Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Abu Hanifa, even though people, they don't know great details about him, some people don't even know that great Imam was actually a tabi'i. He met some of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on. So, after that first generation of companions, you have the tabi'in, those who met the companions, and then there's a third level, atba' tabi'in, those who came after the tabi'in, those who met the tabi'in. And these three generations are important because there's narrations from the Prophet ﷺ that tells us that the true guidance will always be kept within these three generations, meaning the generation of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, those that came after them, the Tabi'een, and then thirdly, the Atba' Tabi'een, those who came after the Tabi'een. So as Muslims, when we look at the golden era of Islam, when we look at the ones that we should try to follow to the best of our ability, first and foremost, without a doubt, it is the Prophet ﷺ. And then the next stage is the companions, Sahaba, radiallahu anhum ajma'in. And then following that are those that came after and those that came after. Okay? Why is this important? Because these three generations are known as the pious predecessors. In Arabic it's called Salaf al-Salih. Salaf in the Quran, it is used to mean whatever came before. Illa ma qad salaf, what has come before. So when a person talks about what is true Islam, how are you supposed to understand Islam? Then we say you're supposed to understand Islam the way that the Prophet ﷺ understood it, the way that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu understood it, the way that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala understood it, the way that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala understood it. If you understand Islam in the same way that all these pious people before us understood Islam, then you are upon the correct Islam. But if you differ in terms of aqidah, and we're not talking about fiqh, but if you differ in aqidah, if for example Imam Abu Hanifa says that Allah Azza wa Jal is above his throne, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, meaning that Allah Azza wa Jal is above his throne in a way that befits his majesty. If you don't believe in the same way that Imam Abu Hanifa believes in, then there's a problem with your Islam. So this is why it's so important that we always check our faith with the faith of those early generations, those pious people. And we'll actually conclude today's class with that story, that very short story of the interaction between the early Muslims and Najashi. I want to ask some questions like I did last time, and inshallah I'll be handing out some small gifts like we did yesterday. So if you know the answer to the question, please just raise your hand. So the first question is, from amongst all the women that breastfed the Prophet ﷺ, who was it that breastfed him for the longest and the one that we spoke about in our series in the Seerah? Do you know her name? Can you mention her name? Yes.
Halima?
Yes, Halima as-Sa'diyya.
Finally.
This is a book on adhkar and du'as authentically mentioned from the Prophet ﷺ, what a person should read in the day and night. Okay, next question. Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl were two people who actively fought against the Prophet ﷺ. Which one was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ? Yes? Abu Lahab. Good, mashallah. Very good, mashallah. Other than Abu Lahab, can you mention any of the uncles of the Prophet ﷺ by name? Any uncle of the Prophet ﷺ by name? Yes? Hamza radiallahu anhu. Very good. From today's class, what was the title of that righteous king? The title of the righteous king that lived in Habasha. We mentioned it a few times.
An-Najashi.
Al-Najashi. Good, mashallah. What was the name of not the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, but the father of the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ? One level up. One level up. Yes.
Abu Talib?
Sorry?
Abu Talib?
Not quite. Abu Talib was one of the uncles of the Prophet ﷺ, but it's a good try. Huh? Hashim is Abdul Muttalib. There's someone else that I'm looking for. Abdul Manaf, mashallah. Very good. Who was the first person after the Prophet ﷺ to accept Islam? Khadija radiallahu anha. Very good. Who was the second person to accept Islam after Khadija radiallahu anha? Ali radiallahu anhu. Very good, mashallah. Who said